It's time for episode 126 of The Crisis Show here on YouTube and wherever else you have this link around the world. Good afternoon from New York City. My name is Rich Klein. I'm president of Rich Klein Crisis Management and founder and host of The Crisis Show. Well, today I am talking about what every other crisis communications expert in the world is talking about. And that is United Airlines. Just an amazing, amazing case study. A lot has been said already about this international incident that involved the removal of a passenger from a United flight out of Chicago just a few days ago. And of course, because of our mobile devices, somebody took a video and captured the entire scene of Chicago Transit Authority police removing a passenger, roughing him up and dragging him through the aisle. We then had the head of United Airlines issuing a very wishy-washy mixed statement, which didn't reflect the horrors that most of us felt as we watched the video. And certainly I can only imagine what passengers on that flight were feeling as they witnessed this. I'm only surprised that some passengers on that flight did not step in to intervene. That kind of was surprising as well, because we have this ideas in society that there are rules that have to be followed. But this was a case of really inhumane treatment. It was a case of putting profits before people. And there's just so many angles to this story. So what I'm going to try to do in this short segment is point out some of the areas that I think need to be addressed, so that if you're a company executive out there and trying to figure out what would I do if my company is embroiled in this social media firestorm in which somebody took out a camera and captured a really embarrassing, heartbreaking incident that occurred on my watch or occurred on my company premises, in this case, United Property, an airplane. First of all, there are so many things that companies can do to avoid what happened to United. It starts, though, with the culture. It starts out with having humane policies and procedures so that you are not forced to do things to people that you wouldn't do in your personal life. And that's something that a lot of companies still have a lot to learn about: how to treat people with respect, how to treat customers with respect. The short story here was that this person who was dragged off the plane had bought a ticket. The airline had overbooked the flight, and when they asked for volunteers and couldn't get enough volunteers, they selected this person at random and dragged him through the aisle when he refused, and he banged his face. Apparently, he banged his face on one of the aisle seats, the arm to the seat, and was bloodied up. And that picture of him standing in the aisle with his face bloody was just the picture that went around the world, if you will. So you had this Oscar Munoz, the CEO, who, by all accounts, was an amazing communicator. He was PR Week's Communicator of the Year just a few months ago for 2016. He had brought the airline back to some success after his predecessor was forced out. So it's very surprising that this CEO issued a statement that did not reflect humanity, that did not reflect a responsible CEO, and did not reflect a socially responsible company. And that's one of the things I wanted to talk about today, because it's so easy to get your crisis statement right the first time. If you do that, in fact, I was just watching a few minutes ago his first TV interview, and it happened to be with ABC News Good Morning America. And as I watched that interview, unlike many other CEOs, I can honestly say that he conveyed his humanity. He came across as a human being, not a business person. When he expressed his apology, when he said this would never happen again, when he said that the company needs to do better, we'll examine it, they were all, at least from where I was sitting watching this video, and I do watch body language and so forth, he did seem very convincing in his heartfelt sorrow about what happened. Now, it's just unfortunate that either he made a wrong-headed decision when this incident first surfaced, or he was advised by his public relations or crisis communications team. I'm not sure how it's set up at United. I do know that the company employs an outside PR firm named Edelman, which was, as of today, still promoting the fact that it helped to rebuild United's reputation. We don't know what happened internally, whether this was a CEO decision, or bad advice from the PR firm or the internal public relations people. But clearly, it cost them a fortune in the stock price. It cost them a fortune in customer loyalty. And it's going to take a lot of work and a long time to win back even some of those customers that were lost as a result of them seeing this video and hearing about it in the news around the news cycle the last 48 hours. So really important for businesses out there, you got to get it right the first time. When something is done to a customer, a mistake, an accident, and we've seen this in my work, I've seen this for many, many years, the instinct should be to say, I'm sorry, we're going to fix this immediately, not 2 or 3 statements later. And that's that's the sad part here for the company, is that had United acted appropriately, the moment that video hit the internet and started going viral, the apology that was issued yesterday on Tuesday and the subsequent TV interview today, most people would have said, you know what, that was a horrible thing that happened. But they've apologized. They've taken the disciplinary action. By the way, that's something that I haven't seen yet. The law enforcement, excuse me, the Chicago Transit Authority, I believe is the name of the security force that went onto the plane to remove the passenger. One of them was put on modified duty. So there was definitely some blame to go around here in the way this was handled. Oscar Munoz said today on Good Morning America that he would never again use security force to remove a passenger in such a scenario for an overbooked flight. We'll have to see if that holds. It totally was the wrong way to go, and certainly the law enforcement person who roughed up this passenger, there's blame to go there as well. But that's part of the responsibility to United. This is a United plane, a private for-profit business using the police department, in this case the transit police, to go onto the plane to physically remove the passenger. And that's a reflection on United, even though the action was taken by the law enforcement officer. That reflects badly on United. So you have to think about, as a company executive, you have to think about who your partners are in doing business and dealing with customer situations, and especially when dealing with issues like security, no matter what kind of business you're in. Because if somebody acts inappropriately and gets violent with a customer or a client, it reflects on you. So that's something that United is going to have to look at as well. How are they going to handle this in the future? I've also read that this overbooking is a system-wide problem. So obviously, this is going to be looked at, and the silver lining here may be that all the airlines will stop the system of overbooking and then tossing people off flights. Certainly, that's something that's going to be looked at. We all know that Congress is going to hold hearings. There's been a lot of outrage from many government officials around the country, and that's a good thing if Congress and with the Department of Transportation and the FAA take appropriate actions. But so much responsibility still lies with companies themselves. And so it starts with the culture of your company and how you treat people. The other thing that is going to be interesting to watch is how the employees react to this. Certainly, if I'm an employee of United and I'm watching this video, I feel horrible. I don't feel proud. I don't feel proud to work for the company when I see this. I'm not going to feel loyalty to a company that treats its passengers that way. So that's another issue that you have to look at. Everybody's talking about losing customers and stockholder value. The other thing that must be addressed here is the thousands of employees, I don't know how many employees United has, but probably more than thousands of employees around the world who work for United Airlines. What was their reaction? And can you count on, first of all, they're going to be incurring the wrath of passengers going forward because they are a reflection of the company. They represent the company. They are the ambassadors, if you will. I've always said this, and many others have. Your employees are your ambassadors, your reputation ambassadors. So it's going to be interesting to see their motivation to work, how they get over this. That had to be very emotional for every flight attendant, every pilot who works for United, and all the many other people who work at the gate and so forth, because that is just when you have a nationwide crisis, an international crisis about your company, it's got to affect everybody in some way. So the other thing that's important here for Muniz to do is to really make sure that he communicates not only with the public as he did finally today in an effective way, but to communicate regularly with employees. In this day and age, CEOs are up here and many don't get to speak with the line employees. And it's really important that he continue to take the temperature of the employees around the world and motivate them and support them every way he can to make sure that they stay loyal and do their jobs right and do them well, because it is a customer service business more than many other businesses. So those are some thoughts about United in terms of the incident itself. On a broader scale, we have social media. 15 years ago, this incident could have easily been buried under the rug. I would say 10 years ago even, because maybe 10 years ago was when YouTube started, I believe. I think it was 2006. So you have these viral videos. You have Twitter now that makes these things so much bigger than they might have been in the past because of social media. So you have to assume, if you're a company executive, if you work in management, you have to assume that any bad behavior by an employee, any bad behavior that reflects on your company, anything negative about your company, is going to be, well, very well could be recorded. It could be recorded on a video, as millions of people saw and have seen and continue to watch the video around the internet. It could be a tweet. It could be a posting to a Facebook page or the corporate Facebook page about an incident. And we see these all the time. Airlines and many other businesses have gotten better with using social media to respond to customer complaints, and that's a good thing. But what's missing here, and I usually these customer complaints about lost baggage or missed flights, they're mostly, as I say, inconveniences for in many situations, and they don't dramatically affect the reputation of a company or a stock price as this video did. And so what the missing link is here is that the company probably didn't plan for a situation like this. They didn't get the crisis management team together and train for an incident like this. A social media firestorm in which something happens on the airplane that is the fault of an airline. We're not talking about terrorism here. We're not talking about a natural disaster in which there's you could say, well, an engine went out, or plane was struck by lightning, or there were icy conditions and we were told to land. This incident was totally United Airlines responsibility. And so you have to train for those crisis incidents as well. How you're going to communicate to the public about it, and that means right out the gate, immediately after the incident happens. How are you going to communicate? What are you going to say? Who are you going to attribute it to? Who are your most critical audiences that have to get that message? And then how are you going to begin to rebuild your reputation once the crisis begins to subside? And I talk about in my business, Rich Client Crisis Management, I talk about the 3 key timelines in a crisis: before, during, and after. And company executives and other leaders need to pay attention to all 3 key timelines, because you have to prepare for the worst. You have to be able to respond appropriately and effectively and really fast in the middle of a crisis. And then you have to begin the process of rebuilding your reputation once that crisis begins to subside. And in this case with United, that's going to be a very long-term process. As many of us in the business predict, this is not going to be one and out kind of crisis where people are going to forget about it. This was a biggie. This is going to be a big case study. It's going to be a biggie for United. Oscar Munoz took the first right steps today with his TV interview, that I saw on GMA, Good Morning America, and also with his latest statement, which was really a heartfelt apology. It should never take that long, and it cost them a fortune because of really bad advice that they gave or really bad advice that was not followed. I don't know what happened internally, but it should never happen today. There are so many positive case studies out there that many of us, like myself, have talked about for years about how to respond to a crisis just like this. When something happens at your company and how you communicate it, it's surprising but not shocking that a company as big and influential as United can still make a mistake just like this. It's even more surprising when you think about the fact that in 1982, Tylenol had a much more serious crisis, and the initial thought could have been, well, Tylenol is going to go out of business, or Johnson & Johnson could have gone out of business. In fact, they turned the crisis into an opportunity. They would, for those of you old enough, Tylenol pulled everything from the shelves. This was the incident. It actually was also, I believe, in Chicago, in which Tylenol was laced with cyanide and people died. I think 7 or 8 people died in that incident. But Tylenol did the right thing. They removed things from the shelves. They removed the product from the shelves. They communicated effectively with all their critical audiences, and then they developed a tamper-proof bottle cap that most of us are familiar with today. They the pioneers of the industry for safety and drugs and prescription drugs. So that was 1982, and here we are. How many years later, in 2017? All any good CEO has to do is start with the Tylenol crisis. Look at how Tylenol and Johnson & Johnson dealt with that crisis, and there are many others, of course, along the lines. And I would recommend for those of you interested to take a look at the 125, this is 126, we've done 125 episodes of The Crisis Show since 2012, many case studies with very similar situations when companies are facing negative media coverage. What do you do? How do you communicate? How do you rebuild your reputation? So check them out on The Crisis Show right here on YouTube. So if you have any thoughts about what I've said, comments, questions, feedback, please use hashtag The Crisis Show or hashtag United, which seems to be the very popular hashtag today. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again soon.